Rob, good evening. How's it going?
It's going, man.
What are you watching right now?
Colorado State.
Yeah, same here. I might flip it over to Kansas when it hits halftime, but this is compelling stuff.
Yeah, it almost broke into a couple of brawls here, but so far so good.
Yeah, and you've got the Colorado State guy doing the Dion Shuffle dance in the end
Beautiful,
zone, and
beautiful.
I would pay money to have a live mic at the post game handshake. However, this one ends between Norvell and Prime.
Yes.
All right, we'll go ahead and get it started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, for tuning in to Gauchos After Dark. This is your weekly recap of Big 12 college football Saturday every week. For the Texas Tech fans tuning in, we'll do our in depth recap on the win over Tarleton State tomorrow, and we'll take a look around the league real quick today, venture a guess at some opening lines for next weekend. And Rob, I guess we can start with the 11 a.m. games, the big one being Kansas State, Missouri. But before we get there, shouldn't get too far without thanking our sponsor, Barnett, Howard, and Williams. Gauchos After Dark is presented by BHW Law Firm. Every weekend, you can learn more about them at bhwlawfirm.com. Rob, competitive game in Columbia. Kansas State comes up a little bit short. Any specific takeaways on that one?
Yeah, it was obviously Missouri's Super Bowl. They played their best game in 2 years. Um, rough go for Will Howard. I don't know why they didn't pull the trigger and go with what's his name, Austin Johnson,
Avery Johnson, yeah.
Anthony
Avery
Avery.
Johnson.
I knew it was an A name. I don't know why they didn't go with him at the end of the game. The Will Howard could barely walk.
Yeah, Tyler, looks like you're a K-State fan. Any thoughts on that one?
Man, it's Will Howard's team. He won the Big 12 championship last year, but you got to go with Avery at the end of the game. He was getting 5, 6, 8 yards a pop. It was tough.
Yeah, some weird sequences at the end of the game. Like I think Kansas State had it on about the 4 or 5 yard line, takes a delay of game instead of using one of their timeouts,
Yep.
and that might have cost them a chance to get into the end zone there instead of settling for three. And then the whole deal with Missouri lining up for their field goal at the end of the game, it looked like they were gonna try to run another play, and then maybe they thought K State was going to call timeout, so they don't even have a unit out on the field. They take a delay of game and backs it up to a 61-yard field goal, and they make it anyway. So kind of some weird end of game sequences
And,
there in that one.
and man, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. My dad came from Minnesota. I ended up in Kansas, whatever. Little fun fact, 8 out of 32 teams in the NFL, 25% of the league has their longest field goal in NFL history against the Minnesota Vikings. And the longest field goal in SEC history is now against my Kansas State Wildcats. So, man, I'm cursed when it comes to that. But, I mean, it was a hell of a game. You got to go with Avery Johnson at the end of the game there. That's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, it would have been a big spot for a true freshman, but with how
But
Will Howard was kind of hobbled, I mean, it's hard not to second guess that a little bit.
he was hobbled, and they didn't ask Avery to do much, but when he was in the game, he was poised, he was cool, he did what he needed to do. He was running the read option, he handed it when he needed to. It was, man, I just felt like they needed to go with him.
Yeah, well, tough loss. Rob, I know you hated seeing Drinkwitz
I
in that
I
post game
hated it
interview.
too.
Dorkowitz, you mean?
Yeah,
Dorkwitz.
Dorkwitz. Oh, that was brutal.
What a nerd.
Yeah, I really wish K State would have won that game, but
I appreciate you guys. You're a great follow.
thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Rob.
thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your thoughts. I guess to wrap up this one, I thought that Kansas State kind of looked like they struggled to run it when they really needed to, like in some goal to go type situations, and it didn't always cost them. Like they did score on their first drive of the game, 3rd and goal, but it looked like when they got inside the 5, inside the 10, um, it seemed like they just went away from that, and that it was kind of one of those things that maybe separates a good offense from a great offense. And then defensively, they looked susceptible to the big play. There was a decent amount of kind of deep balls that Mizzou hit on that cost them. So, still think K-State's a really good team. I think they're well coached. I still think Colin Klein's a great offensive coordinator, and hopefully Will Howard is healthy the rest of the season. But I think maybe this game exposed a couple weaknesses for them.
Yeah, I kept going in between. Is this secondary bad, or is the Missouri offense just really good at hitting these deep shots? I think it was a little bit of both today.
Yeah, and they also did some damage. That guy, I think his last name was Burden. He had some great yards after the catch as well. So that's not all on like the deep end coverage. But anyway, long season. It's one non-con game on the road. I just, like I said, still think they're a good team, but maybe a couple of flaws or weaknesses were exposed there. Let's see what else was. I'm trying to go in order here from the early slate, and as usual, we'll kind of gloss over some of these FCS games. Baylor beats Long Island 30-7 after a rain delay. I guess the other big one at 11 a.m. was Iowa State going on the road to Ohio. They were only favored by 2.5, so more or less a toss-up game, and it was on the road. They lose 10-7. That still seems and feels like a really bad loss.
I think bigger than the game was the halftime moment between Matt Campbell, who is the picturesque, calm, cool, collected head coach. We always talk about it. Getting hot on the bridge with a fan who says, "You're on the hot seat, buddy. You're on the hot seat." They have to restrain Matt Campbell from coming back and yelling at this guy. Just a brutal sequence. I feel like Matt Campbell has felt like he's latrelled himself a little bit. I think he regrets being in Iowa State this year.
I didn't realize that happened at halftime. I thought that was after the game.
Was it after the game? Either way.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, that was like a huge. I mean, you have the on-field storylines that they cannot run the ball. They look just like last year. I mean, totally inept on offense with a good defense. But yeah, like Matt Campbell's not supposed to be the guy who loses his composure like that. Um, so I don't know. Like that's kind of been their whole thing is like we don't have more talent than anybody, but we're well coached. We develop players. We've got this strong culture. And seeing Campbell act that way makes it feel like there's some pretty serious cracks in the foundation.
Yeah, he went full Tuberville.
It was almost worse than Tuberville. Like Tuberville just kind of like shouted something and kept walking for the most part. Like he didn't need to be restrained from anybody. Um, man, yeah, that was it was weird to see him rattled like that. Um, Mitchell, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, good evening, boys. Happy Big 12 dub. And I have a buddy of mine that actually played at Iowa State with Campbell. And I sent him a hashtag. I'm trying to be hashtag Big 12 strong. And he said, we're horrible. And I said, between the last couple of years and the gambling debacle, we're on the Campbell hot seat. And he said, yes, the team is unwatchable. I watched one snap today and it was an interception, and I immediately turned it off. So Iowa State faithful is turning on him too, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's rough. And like it hasn't exactly been a great start to the season for Texas Tech, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. So maybe that's a silver lining. Um, and it is funny how fast things change in that respect because, like, Rob, you and I do the bit where any job comes open and we Photoshop Matt Campbell taking that job, and, Iowa State fans are like, no, don't you dare. And then, like, 3 games later, some of them want to get rid of him. So it's crazy. You can get whiplash following a coach's popularity in this sport.
Could he fell upwards into an NFL job like our beloved Cliff Kingsbury?
He could have in like 2020, I think.
Yeah, I think he's past his prime here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Video today didn't help, huh?
And funny enough, their most winnable remaining game might be next weekend in Stillwater, which sounds strange to say. I think they're in real danger of going 1-11, and I don't think that's much of a hot take.
No, I don't think so either.
Um, so and kind of a bad look. for the conference, just some of the L's that everybody's been taking in non-con, like you have a loss to Wyoming, Ohio, Rice, South Alabama, which we'll get to here in a minute, Miami of Ohio. Like, we sort of touched on this, I think, last week, that the conference didn't seem to have as much depth kind of in the middle as we thought. And it feels like that narrative is just sort of getting piled onto with some more results this weekend. Oklahoma demolished Tulsa. We don't really have to spend any time on that. UCF handled Villanova without John Rice Plumlee. I'm not sure what his status is going forward. Texas Tech won't play them until toward the end of the season, but I wonder, with conference play starting next weekend, kind of how soon he'll be available. If any UCF fans are in here and have any insight on that, would love to hear from y'all.
I'd love to ask y'all, do y'all think UCF is the top quartile team moving into next year in the Big 12?
Yes, I do.
And I'm scared, and that scares me already.
Quiet. Hey, how's it going, man?
Yeah, you're asking about John Rice Plumlee.
Yeah, do y'all know about him?
Yeah, he's questionable right now, but apparently in the press conference, Gus just said that they're actually evaluating whether or not they're considering, if they can maybe get him out by K-State, but they don't want to risk it either. So
yeah, and an athletic quarterback like him, you probably don't want to push it. Early.
Knowing him, he probably wants to go out there, but they're gonna try to play it safe so that way he can preserve the rest of the half of the season if they need to. Timmy played all right. He played great. But it's an FCS opponent, so you really can't tell how well our backup is when it comes to, it can be a little bit questionable going into conference play with that.
Yeah, I got you. Well, appreciate you chiming in.
Yeah, no problem.
Listening. Dolly, I've got you queued up as well. Do you have any additional thoughts on UCF?
Yeah, I mean, we did well with our backup. He, ironically enough, the last week he transferred over from South Florida. His last game as a starter was the Warren I-4, and he started at UCF back in 21. But I think that was a meme that's kind of going viral that JRP is coming back early. It's still going to be a few weeks. We're rolling with Timmy McClain next week, rolling into the Little Apple. And I think we got a couple guys dinged up, but for the most part, he looked pretty serviceable. And we even got our third string quarterback in there with some reps too for a blowout. So it should be interesting the first couple games. If we can make it to Oklahoma these next couple weeks and maybe get JRP back for that would be ideal.
I think that would be shaping up to be a good one. I know when Plumlee was healthy, I was sort of starting to view UCF as definitely the top newcomer. Not necessarily questioning that now, but I think BYU might have an early season claim after their win today, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, UCF, I didn't really buy that they'd be conference first year, but they look solid, and I still don't know if they'll quite get there, but I think they might screw up a couple other teams' season on the way.
Yeah, it's looking. I mean, we played an FCS team. I mean, we played a Kent State, didn't have 11 starters on their offense, entirely new staff. And then, Boise State is now, I think they're 1-2. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of a sample size. But there's some young guys. There's definitely some talent that's in there. And, just given this Saturday, it looks wide open across the board with Texas struggling. And Oklahoma did, they took care of, I think they were at Tulsa. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, Oklahoma just not really. I guess they played SMU, but they're going into conference play, I think, more untested than just about everybody else. They just had a super weak non-con schedule.
Yeah, I trust me, I'm familiar with Dylan Gabriel in clutch moments, so that'll start to crumble.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Well,
appreciate you
tuning
boys.
in. Yeah, thanks for the comments. thank you everybody for tuning in to Gauchos After Dark, presented by Barnett, Howard, and Williams. If you have a question or comment, anything else, feel free to request to speak, and we'll get to as many folks as possible. What was next? I guess we'll go to Oklahoma State and South Alabama. There's kind of a handful of kickoffs right at 6:30, or 7. This is a bad loss. I mean, they were only favored by 7, so not like huge favorites or anything, but to lose by 26 to South Alabama, I don't even know where to start on this one, Rob.
That's in Stillwater.
Yes.
I mean, that's just inexcusable. That's a bad loss. This might be a worse loss than Texas State.
Yeah.
It's not week 1. You're not kind of thrown off here. It's not like Wyoming where you're on the road. I mean, it's just flat out a bad loss, and you got dominated.
When they, like, in my opinion, if you're only a 7-point favorite at home against a group of 5 opponent, you kind of have a warning sign there that it's not going to be a blowout. Baylor could at least claim that they were caught off guard, that Texas State was a 27.5-point dog, and
Right.
brand new coach, brand new roster. Oklahoma State continued to play all 3 quarterbacks. It looks like Gundy got the most snaps he had 18 pass attempts. Bowman had 12. Rangel had 5. None of them completed more than 50%. They combined averaged 3.3 yards per attempt. Ran the ball first off, Ollie Gordon only had 3 carries. That's malpractice, but as a team, they averaged 3.2 yards per carry. And it looks like they were just straight up dominated. Like sometimes these games are flukes or whatever. They're not as good as South Alabama, and it's not even close.
And doesn't it seem like Gundy got left behind in the NIL world too?
Yeah, I mean, you can say that about Gundy with the transfer portal and the NIL deals, but I think there's a whole lot more to this than just, oh, well, he doesn't care about NIL. This is just a bad football team. I mean, and this is unlike what we've seen a lot of times in the Gundy era.
I think they probably also should have fired their offensive coordinator last season, and
Yeah.
I bet they miss Spencer Sanders. We do have an Oklahoma State fan in the chat, so Jerry, you might have more commentary for us here. What do you got on the Oklahoma State game?
What comment do I have? Yeah, it was certainly bad. OSU's really seen a really bad decrease in our offense since really Todd Monken left Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy certainly hired under what we really should be hiring on the offensive side. Defensive side, I mean, we've had a shot in the pan in the past, but Gundy just can't relate to players anymore. Gundy, he just wants to hire people that is subservient to him. He wants players that don't want to transfer. They're happy to be a D1 player. We're really not looking for players anymore that have NFL aspirations, because Gunny doesn't want to deal with the NIL. He doesn't want to recruit anybody from the NIL, or just really he doesn't want to win. It seems like that $7.5 million a year, I think, has really hurt him and hurt Oklahoma State in the future. It looks like, to me, it feels like Mike Gundy would rather go out and farm and ranch than really coach and recruit D1 players. It's just not fun to be an Oklahoma State fan right now.
What do you think is the path forward? I mean, it's hard for me to see a turnaround within the season, but just like long-term program trajectory, how do you think they right the ship?
I mean, we're going to have to make some significant staff changes. I mean, offensive Dunn's going to have to go. Charlie Dickey, I mean, he did a great job at Kansas State in the past, but we need to find a new offensive line coach. That's really been Mike Gundy's, really his Achilles heel his entire tenure at Oklahoma State. We really haven't been able to find a consistent offensive line coach to bring consistent play on that end. I mean, our best teams, I mean, we would have gone to the national championship if we had a better offensive line in the past. Mason Rudolph years, early Spencer Sanders years. I mean, the reason Spencer Sanders was so successful because he could run. Right now, we don't have that. Yeah, Gundy can run a little bit, but we do not have the athletic touch that we had in the past to be able to combat that offensive line woes. But Mike Gundy, he's either going to have to act like Coach Prime and really embrace social media, embrace NIL, or he's going to have to go.
I say Gundy's gone by the end of the season.
So,
Man, that would be a real
He's
surprise to me if
very
he is a.
Gundy got
So I want
fired.
to tell he has a $28 million contract. If we fire him, it's $28 million. We got to pay him. So Oklahoma State don't. I mean, we really don't want to pay that. So, and plus his contract it carries over year to year, where it adds an extra year. So essentially, he has a lifetime contract. So we're in bad shape in terms of letting him go.
I mean, the same was with Gary Patterson. I think he's just following the same footsteps as him. TCU was just, willing enough to actually just say, okay, I mean, you're free to do something different, but we don't want you as a head coach anymore. And it kind of funny. It really upset GP because he thought he was the king of this damn school. Like, he never thought he was ever going to get displaced as the head coach of this football program as long as he wanted, even though he never took it as serious as he should have been for almost the last 2 to 3 years of it. And luckily, Donati just put on his big boy britches and just said, hey, man, like, I love what you did for this school, but it's time to go, and we're not going to keep you here. And Oklahoma State, yes, it's something to chew, but I mean, TCU had to do that with Gary Patterson his last 2 years, too. They took a giant chunk of donor money just to pay him off so he wouldn't come back the next year, much less that one.
Ty, you got something to add here?
Yeah, Jerry, I'd be really interested to hear, what and maybe if you can speak to the best of your ability on behalf of Oklahoma State fans out there. It's so wild to me, first of all, the performance, but I mean, considering Oklahoma State was so close to winning their second Big 12 championship, not even more than 2 seasons ago. Now, is this just all on Jim Nowles and that defense essentially being a flash in the pan? And I'm not saying like I'm simping for Gundy because I do think this is a bad loss and just the general vibe of the program is in a bad way. But we're seeing the same thing with Dave Aranda as well, with comments about 2 years in a row now, lack of maturity, just an overall vibe that there is a loss of control with the program. I'm wondering, I don't know I don't know where, as a Texas Tech fan, I don't know where my expectations would be, but it's just, it's so hard to, find out what the best route forward is when so recently you really were that close to great success. And again, maybe that's just a Jim Nowles flash in the pan because I agree with you. I think Oklahoma State has had some issues on offense for the last few years. I think they got as far as they did in 21 despite some shaky play on the offensive side of the ball. But anyway, just really interesting to just, to hear Pokes fans, the reactions to it. I'm not blaming them by any means. I don't know how I'd act, but I also, I think we as Tech fans, we haven't been in quite the same situation. So just interested in the fans' reactions to, with that, all those other things in context.
Let's get Carson in here. I think we've got another Oklahoma State fan. Carson, anything to add on this discussion?
Unfortunately, yeah. I was living out here in Phoenix. Saw us play Arizona State last weekend, and ugly first half. Long story short, defense pitched a shutout in the second half. Managed to get a win against an atrocious Arizona State team, which Fresno State's putting it on them right now. But the truth and the reality is that if you're a Big 12 fan, maybe Texas Tech, or you might be a TCU fan, so on and so forth. The trajectory of Oklahoma State's program is going downhill, and it's going downhill fast. And I think primarily it's two reasons that we've heard a few moments ago. It is the refusal to fire coaches. Quite honestly, I cannot fathom how our offensive coordinator and our offensive line coach have jobs. It is absolutely egregious. And then, quite honestly, Mike Gundy's refusal to recruit. And that's not new. That's something, unfortunately, we've been stuck with here in Stillwater for a long, long time. He's just absolutely has no interest in recruiting, and he does things his own way. And then, as a result, our administration leadership at the university has given him this rolling lifetime deal, which is a tremendous problem. And unless we're able to find a lot of donor money real quick, I think we're going to be in trouble long term, which isn't, arguably not great for the Big 12, as it's, of course, Oklahoma State's been a mainstay at the upper echelon of the Big 12 for quite a number of years now. But yeah, long story short, it's time for Gundy to go. It's time for us to clean house, and we really need a total reboot. So it's kind of a real shame. It's really disappointing to see what's going on here.
Well, we appreciate y'all joining us and adding to the conversation there. I didn't get to see much of the game, but I know it doesn't look good right now in Stillwater. Before we let y'all go, before we move on, any guesses on the opening line against Iowa State next weekend?
Take the under.
Fair enough. Let's move along. There's some talk about TCU there for a minute, and they get a win on the road in Houston, actually the first conference game of the season. Rob, did you catch any of that one?
Yeah, I got to watch quite a bit of it, jumping back and forth between the Tech game, before the Tech game, after the Tech game. It was kind of an ugly affair. Houston they're not very good. I thought TCU played a good game, but Houston just can't
Rob, are
really
you with
do
us?
anything. Yeah, I was talking. Can you hear me?
Can
Check
anybody
one.
else hear Rob, or am I the only one?
I can hear him.
Yeah, we can hear him.
Oh, jeez. All right, my deal's screwing up. I don't know what the problem is. Try again, Rob.
Can you hear me now? 1 2 1 2. Houston sucks. Hello.
I still can't hear you, dude. I don't know what the deal is. Um, I saw most of that game. I was watching on my phone while watching Tech on the TV, and it looked like overall pretty good performance from TCU. It was a close game for a while, but I don't think they surrendered an offensive touchdown to Houston. There was a kick return for a touchdown, and I think 2 field goals from Houston. So strong defensive performance. Chandler Morris had 1 interception in the red zone. I think that's his 3rd red zone turnover this season, which is maybe an alarming trend or maybe just a sign that they're due to sort of become a little bit more efficient in the red zone. But overall, good win. They ran the ball well, and I think extended it out to something like 39-13 there at the end. So good win for TCU, and I guess they're alone in first place right now, at least till next weekend at 1-0. And Houston, I'm not totally sure what to make of them. I think that they're probably not very good after the loss to Rice and just how they lost to TCU today. I kind of thought they might be pretty good after beating UTSA, but that has kind of diminished in my view. Rob, try again, see if I can hear you this time.
Check 1 1 2. All right,
Okay,
we're
I
back.
got you.
We're back.
Perfect. Yes, we're back.
All right. As I was saying, TCU put it on of Houston, just not very good. Houston couldn't do anything offensively. They just looked dead in the water, man. And they didn't have any juice. Dana teams usually have all this juice, but Houston just looked like a lame duck.
Yeah, even Dana said their offense was horrendous post game, which I agree, and I think that's just because of really lack of experience. And you know, Houston never really had much talent coming in this year, much less the fact that now they're actually having to learn what it is to play Power Five. They just got their first taste. I mean, both Houston and Cincinnati, they're going to be on the uphill climb for probably the next 3 years, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that was kind of the argument on Houston all offseason was you lose Clayton Tune, a guy that's started, dozens of games for you. You lose Tank Dell, a really explosive receiver. You lose Alton McCaskill, and they kind of talked up, or at least Dana talked up different skill position guys and said, "Yeah, I'm not worried about what we have at receiver." And like Matthew Golden had a couple really bad drops tonight. And I don't think it would have made a difference in the outcome, but yeah, they don't look sharp at all on offense. I think Donovan Smith, a guy that Tech fans are obviously familiar with, mostly doing okay in terms of like what they're asking him to do. But yeah, I just think they're probably not very good. And kind of like what I was saying with Oklahoma State, it's hard to see them figuring it out mid-season. Like, I think they're probably just at a pretty sizable talent deficit, and I think Dana might have lost his fastball. I don't know if he's cut out for it anymore.
Big words there. Dana
I mean,
washed.
He left West Virginia because he knew it wasn't going to end well for him there, and he gets a clean slate, a new contract at Houston, and they had that 111 win year. But it's like, I don't know. I don't see him being the guy to get them transitioned and on solid ground in the Big 12.
Needs more Red Bulls.
But he needs something. All right, let's go to the backyard brawl, maybe the game of the week in the Big 12. And we got our boy Rush here. Rush, why are you not out burning couches and drinking moonshine?
Oh, we're here. I'm here with Moneyline Mac as well. The Ryan and Rush show is well represented. Hey, nice guy Neil pulled off a victory tonight, didn't he? You guys saw Army versus Navy tonight. No one was throwing the ball in Pitt versus West Virginia. How great was that?
Y'all didn't need to, man. Y'all really could have just knelt out the clock in the second half, and I guess you kind of did. Like, Nico barely threw it at all. I was bummed to see Garrett Green got hurt.
Absolutely.
Curious his status for next weekend, but huge win. Tweeted it out, but seeing that fan base, get to sing country roads after winning the backyard brawl, like, that's what this sport is all about.
No, hey, I know we're catching you at the worst possible spot next week because I'm telling you, tonight was the Super Bowl. Folks. Oh, we won our Super Bowl, Gauchos. Yeah. Trust me. Hey, beat us next week. It's all good. We won the Super Bowl. No. Fuck Pitt. It's all good. Nice guy Neil won the Super Bowl. We're good. It was Army versus Navy. We ran the ball. We kept yelling from the stands, "Run the ball, Neil, run it." And people were getting mad at us around us, but then he'd run it and we do well. And they're like, "Oh, you guys are right." And it's just run the ball. Give it to CJ Donaldson. That's all you have to do. And we'll be all right.
I loved at the end there how flustered some Pitt defensive players were at Zach Frazier. And I guess after 55, 60 minutes of getting your ass whipped in the trenches, it kind of boils over.
Hey, so let me ask you this, Gauchos. How soft is fucking Pitt's fan base? Oh, they are the softest individuals.
Terrible.
You guys been trolling them all week. They're the softest individuals you've ever met, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know how y'all put up with them.
Pretty amazing,
dude. It was a win for America tonight. That was all. They're so soft, man.
Yeah, they suck. I was so glad y'all beat them, dude.
I honestly, I probably would not have shown my face for about a year if we had lost the game tonight. Jurkovich fucking sucks. Yeah, he's
horrible.
Yeah. We said that to a Pitt fan on the way out, and we literally just meant it at what it is. He's terrible, and he took offense to it. I'm like, dude, we actually don't mean that to attack you. You just have the worst quarterback ever. He's awful. We'll take Nico.
I really don't remember the last time I've seen a Power 5 starter that bad.
He's awful. He's horrible, man. He came from Boston College. Boston College hasn't been good since Matt Ryan. They should be relegated to the group of 5, man. Like, they're awful. And Pitt's going to take him over. What's his name's already halfway out the door to Michigan State, their coach. I mean, damn. Pitt sucks. And we don't even mean that as in terms of, West Virginia wins. They beat Pitt. Fuck them. Like, no, Pitt fucking sucks. And Pitt fans, we saw a couple of them in the parking lot. They're not even high on their team. They're just like, we're here for a participation trophy. And it's like, no shit. You guys suck.
Well, y'all enjoy it tonight. Burn some couches. Take a swig of moonshine for us.
The night is young.
Sing country roads.
Down, brothers. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. All right. Have fun, y'all.
We'll see you on the Ryan Rush Show. Love you guys. Love you guys.
See y'all. Bye. Rob, I think they're going to have a good time tonight.
You think they have any thoughts on Pitt?
I think that they think Pitt is a really good team with a great quarterback.
Yeah.
And a very committed coach who's in it for the long haul. That's what I gathered.
Oh, man. I love it.
Yeah,
first field goal.
We'll of course preview them this week, but one of my biggest concerns for Texas Tech's defense is defending quarterback run game, and that is of course Garrett Green's bread and butter. So I'll be curious if he's available against us, but we'll get to that this week. But yeah, huge win for Neil Brown. I think if they got to 1-2, he'd be skating on really thin ice. So big win for him, and West Virginia finished as a tough non-con 2-1. And they're probably feeling like their first game of Big 12 plays at home, winnable. Not sure what the spread will be. I think it'll be pretty close. So who knows? Maybe they've got a little bit of momentum now in Morgantown.
I know this is Big 12 after dark, but Colorado really struggled. Oh, they got a fumble. Never mind. Turnover.
They start the second half.
Whew. Yeah, Colorado State was driving at the 10. They just got a fumble though.
God, dude, I'm telling you,
I was about to say
this post-game handshake.
Colorado State was putting it on them, but Colorado forced a fumble.
Oh man, I can't wait for the end of this
game.
game.
Has been wild, man.
I hope Dion puts his shades back on before he goes and shakes Norvell's hand.
He had him on the whole first half.
All right, moving right along. We're kind of alternating between bad losses and stuff here. Cincinnati loses in overtime to Miami of Ohio. They were 14-point favorites. The game was in Cincinnati. I didn't think this was going to happen, but I did try to warn people that the all-time series is pretty close to 50-50. And like I said, I wasn't predicting a Cincy loss, but program that felt like they had some momentum the first 2 weeks of the season. Really good performance against an FCS team. Road win versus Pitt, who is probably terrible. And so that win kind of looked worse and worse as the night went on, and then they dropped one to Miami. So that kind of hurt my perception of Cincy, I guess.
Yeah, I thought Cincinnati was going to come in and be a little better than everyone thought, but with this loss, it's kind of like, well, maybe they just are what we thought they were before the season. I think they'll struggle in Big 12 play. And Pitt, nothing against West Virginia here, but Pitt doesn't look quite as good either now.
No, but if you're West Virginia, who cares? Like, you just want to beat those
absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely.
Especially after how they lost last year. They should have won that game, and haven't beat Pitt because the rivalry wasn't played for a decade plus, and haven't beat them in Morgantown since I think 2010. So they probably don't care that Pitt sucks, and they shouldn't. Yeah, so Cincinnati, like we've talked about this, and I sort of had a hunch at the beginning of the season that the four teams you don't get to play in Big 12 play, I think you could have gone 3-1 against them. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, what a brutal draw to not be able to play Oklahoma State and Iowa State this year. I mean, if you could add one more year with a round robin, you're looking at a good stretch of football here for Texas Tech. But even so, I think Texas Tech has an opportunity here. But you really want to play Oklahoma State. They're so bad.
I think so too. It's just like, is Baylor that good this year? Probably not, but still, like, would you rather go to Waco or like to Stillwater this year? Like, I would still pick Stillwater, I think. Or yeah, like UCF coming into Lubbock, that's not going to be easy by any stretch. Would I rather have Cincinnati coming into Lubbock? Yes, absolutely. So, in my opinion, at least early returns, kind of a tough draw for Texas Tech in terms of the Big 12 schedule, but we'll see. Some of these programs may kind of have up and down years. Okay, let's keep working our way around. I think we've covered all of them. Texas beats Wyoming. They were kind of playing it close there for a while. It was 10-10, and then they pull away at the end. I'm trying to find the final 31-10.
So Peasley doesn't play a snap. Savota plays the whole game, and it's 10-10 in the fourth quarter. You have a 40-yard play by Xavier Worthy, who's just a stud. And then you have a pick six that kind of breaks the game open, and Wyoming couldn't recover after that. But it's 10-10 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I pulled up the box score, I think at that point when it was 10-10, and Ewers was like 50% for 84 yards, and so clearly they were struggling on offense, and I mean, believe me, we experienced that firsthand against Wyoming. I
And
did
I
think it was
saw Tim
funny.
tweets about Texas Tech after the game.
Yeah, some Texas fan tried to like really flex the win over Wyoming, and like I know we can't say anything because we lost to them, and like I totally get it's a bad loss, but you're like the richest program in the sport. You just beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, and you're like trying to talk trash about a win over Wyoming at home. Like, I mean, I guess
Oh,
congrats,
we
but
just beat Texas Tech's daddy. It's like, dude, come on.
yeah, I was at 10-10. I was still not very confident, but if Wyoming got up even by like 3, I was going to get ready to go find some receipts from September 2nd. But hey, you still get to settle it on the field against Texas later in the year. So in the meantime, they'll keep thinking about us, and we'll just focus on West Virginia. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
Okay, capping it off. Like I said, we're probably going to skip some of these FCS games. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Gauchos After Dark, presented by Barnett, Howard, and Williams, the best law firm in the state of Texas, bhwlawfirm.com. BYU, a team that week 1 I was not impressed with. They beat Sam Houston 14-0 in Provo, and you're kind of thinking, okay, Sam Houston's not very good. Maybe the defense is good, but how does the offense only score 14 points? They play an FCS opponent last week, not really able to glean much from it. Arkansas is probably not, a top half of the SEC team, but on the road in Fayetteville, 38-31, color me impressed, and they're 3-0.
Yeah, and they look small in the elevator, so surprised they won against that big mighty SEC team.
And arrogant, too.
Yeah, they looked arrogant and small in the oh, what an idiotic tackle in the elevator.
That was a weird thread. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, somebody who I guess covers Arkansas football was like giving his scouting report from the team hotel. He's like, yeah, I've been in the elevator with several players, and they look small, and they seem arrogant. And I'm like, I don't know how you can tell that by standing next to somebody, but I guess they were big enough to beat the Hogs in Fayetteville, so good for them. That was a bad tackle. You're right. So yeah, BYU. I don't know. Like I was telling the UCF fans, maybe the Cougars have something to say about who the best newcomer is this year, and my eyes are already looking forward toward the Holy War, and I know Utah was talking a lot after their win over Florida. BYU now gets to claim that they've got an SEC skin on the wall, but they did it on the road. So fun times. I think BYU. That's going to be a tough road trip for Texas Tech here in 4 or 5 weeks, whenever that game is.
Yeah, of the newcomers, I think BYU has the best win with that win over Arkansas. I know UCF has played well, but they haven't really beat anybody, as Dolly Drama was saying earlier.
Yeah. And I'll have to look at the box score later. But BYU, this name might ring a bell for Texas Tech fans. They've got a really good true freshman running back, LJ Martin. And the reason I say that might ring a bell is he was committed to Tech, decommitted, flipped to Stanford. And then I think when they had their coaching change, wound up at BYU. And they had a really good, I think his name is Aiden Robbins. They had a good transfer coming in from UNLV who rushed for 1,000 yards last year. I thought that was going to be the guy, but they go with the true freshman, and he's played really well through 3 games. So I was going to say kind of the one that got away for Tech maybe, but also if he was here, we'd probably give him the ball 3 times a game. So probably better for him that he wound up at BYU.
Dodge time, baby.
Dodge time. Yeah, we'll get to all that tomorrow, but yeah, I think that mostly covers it. And then Kansas is giving Nevada all they can handle right now. I'm surprised by that one a little bit. I was a little worried for the Jayhawks when they were 28-point favorites on the road, an unusual spot for them, but I didn't think they'd be struggling like this.
Yeah, transparency. I need some Jalen Daniels touchdowns here for my Prize Picks. Got a couple of threads there that I need him to follow through on.
Yeah. They might be one of those teams that, and this is just a 1-game sample size, but maybe they're a really tough out at home, and not so great on the road. The old adage that defense travels, they're obviously more of an offensive team. So I don't know. I still think they can be a tough out in the Big 12, but would have been more impressed had they gone on the road and taken care of business tonight.
We now have a blocked field goal in this Colorado game.
It's shaping up to be a good one. Let's get to our opening line predictions next week.
We got the
Conference play.
Kansas fan maybe talking about the Kansas game.
Oh,
Drew,
yeah. Let's hear from him.
I can be quick. What's up, guys?
what's
Hey,
up?
how's it going?
Okay, I think we just got a pass to the 1 yard line to Fairchild or tight end. I don't know what's happening in this game. Like I didn't really know if we'd cover, but I thought we'd win by like 2-3 scores. But I don't know if you can blame like the time change or whatever. But Nevada's legitimately a horrible team, so I'm a little down about this game, to be honest. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it yet. I've just only been following the score ticker on ESPN. Just 'cause I had other games on, and I didn't think it was going to be that close. But I might tune into the end here. It looks like y'all's defense is playing okay, but the offense is just having a hard time getting it going. Are they like? Is there a bunch of penalties, like bad turnovers, or are they just not really moving the ball?
Yeah, early, I think opening drive went right down and scored, and then had a field goal after that. And other than that, like Jalen's missed a couple of throws. We had one drive where we were moving it, and we'd get a holding call or we'd get a false start or something. Okay, high shot just got a touchdown, so nothing for Daniels, unfortunately, for you, Rob. But
Sorry, Rob.
he tried. He threw it to Fairchild, not the one, so that kind of sucks. But I mean, I'm not like too worried, like as long as we win. But BYU next week at home, it's definitely gonna be a tough game now.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and what we do to wrap these up every weekend is take our best guess at the opening line for all the Big 12 games. And so let's start with that one. Rob, BYU goes to Lawrence. Maybe you don't have a great feel for this until the Kansas game goes final, but initial thoughts on that spread?
I don't know. BYU pick 'em -1. Short favorite. Think
I was
Kansas will
gonna,
be favored at home.
I was gonna guess pick them as well.
-2 Kansas because it's at home.
Maybe, but I also think BYU is gonna get a lot of respect for. They were 8.5-point dogs today when they won in Fayetteville. So I think Pick'em is probably I'll just stick with that because I don't know who might get a point or two. I think this will be a good game and like kind of a telling game. Like I think the winner of this game is probably trending toward top half of the Big 12. Loser maybe has to reassess a little bit. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, like a really good game, kind of in the middle of the Big 12. So looking forward to it. I'll guess Pick'em. Oklahoma goes to Cincinnati. Big noon kickoff is going to be there. I was hoping this one would be maybe a little more competitive, but I'm not optimistic after what Cincinnati did tonight. I think they'll get some respect because it's at home, but I'll say OU. OU minus 10.5.
Yeah, at least 13.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I might
OU's had some
even be.
monster lines.
Yeah, and OU's 3-0 against the number, and SMU was the only one where it was really close. Like they've blown out the bad teams that they've played, and then they covered against SMU. So yeah, maybe it is closer, like 14. Not a conference game, but a good game, I think. SMU at TCU in Fort Worth. I'll guess SMU -4.
On the road?
No, they're at home. Sorry, TCU -4 at home
Okay.
in Fort Worth. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, I misspoke
Surprised
there.
me a little bit there.
Yeah, no, don't think SMU will be favored.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll be like some huge spread. I think honestly, Oh, okay. I thought this game was in Stillwater. I said Stillwater earlier. It's in Ames. Oklahoma State at Iowa State. I think these could be two of the three worst teams in the conference.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what to guess, and whatever it is, I would not pick this game.
How about a 35.5 total?
Under, I think.
Yeah.
I think the lowest total that I've ever bet was actually TCU and Cal in that Cheez-It Bowl several years ago, and it was like I think the total was like 31, and I was like, that's absurd. Of course they're going to go over 31, and I bet the over, and it was like 7-6 or something stupid like that. It was a horrible game.
And 9 interceptions.
Yeah. So I don't know what this one will be. I like on one hand, how could you favor Iowa State over anybody? But on the other, like how could you favor Oklahoma State on the road against any Power Five opponent right now? I mean, I guess they were like 6 or 3.5 point favorites over Arizona State, and they covered that. I don't know, dude. I'm not even going to venture a guess. But I'm not. I wouldn't pick this game regardless. I'll just leave it there, and maybe you have a better guess.
I mean, Iowa State -1 would be my guess, but that's just based on home team, and they're both bad.
Yeah, I could see something like that. Sam Houston at Houston, don't care. Maybe Houston -10.5 or -13. I don't know. This could be a good game. Texas at Baylor. I think the win over Alabama doesn't look so great. I'm not dismissing it because winning in Tuscaloosa is winning in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
But with how Bama looked today, with how Texas looked against Wyoming for the first 3 quarters of that game, it's a home game for Baylor. Not that it's like some huge raucous environment, but they're trying to get some positive momentum. It's an opportunity for that team. I don't know. I think Texas will be a significant favorite, but I wonder if Baylor can keep this close. I'll guess Texas minus. I'll say an even 14.
Yeah. I think I agree with that.
But I think Baylor could. I think if it opened there, I'd probably take Baylor plus a full 2 touchdowns. And then the last, not the last one. We'll get to Texas Tech last. Second to last, UCF at Kansas State. We think without John Rice Plumlee, not totally sure. I think Will Howard would probably be available since he finished the game today, but maybe he's a little bit hobbled. I'll say Kansas State minus like a middle, like 5. Like I think between 4 and 7 somewhere. I'll just say 5.
Yeah, I was thinking a little lower than that, but I could be talked into 4 or 5.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at like 3.5, 4, 4.5, but I'll
Yeah.
say 5.
It'll probably move that way early.
Yeah. And then the last one, Texas Tech in Morgantown. This was one that before the season started looked like a winnable road game for Tech, and then a lot of that hype dissipates with the 0-2 start. West Virginia notches a win, albeit against a bad Pitt team. Still, they get through their non-con, which is a lot tougher than most teams non-con at 2-1. I think this one will be close to even. I think you might be a slight favorite. Like West Virginia got the win, but I think the odds makers and everybody else knows that Pitt is really bad. And so I think it'll be like Texas Tech minus 1.5 or 2, something like that.
I agree. I was going to say -2, but I mean, you're 4-0 against Neil Brown, right?
Yeah, and you were top of mind for him. Like, I don't know if you saw the post game interview after the brawl, but they were like
Yeah.
asking him. He answered like one question, like, "Yeah, happy for our fans, good one." He's like, "But we've got Texas Tech next week," and so he was like immediately, "Yeah, we're on to Texas Tech kind of mentality." So that kind of made me gulp a little bit. I was like, "Uh oh," and he said something like, "They've had our number recently," so maybe he's had this one circled. I don't know.
Pitt was the fan Super Bowl, but Texas Tech is Neil Brown's Super Bowl.
Yeah, Pitt was just the warm up act for Neil. If he gets to 3-1 against us, he is so back.
So back.
But yeah,
Spell his
I
name
think
right.
I think he'll be a very narrow favorite on the road, which kind of sounds weird to say at 1-2 without a win over an FBS program at this juncture. And I could be wrong. I wouldn't be shocked at all if it's West Virginia -2. I think it'll be somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's a good window. -2 either way. Take
Yeah.
them.
That's all I got, man. Any final thoughts from you?
Oh, we're trading ugly field goals. Colorado State backed up to 2nd and 16. Make it a 3rd and manageable. So excited to finish this game, but I think Colorado State probably pulls it out.
Like I said, man, I just want to see the post game handshake. I'm all for college football beef, and I know people have mixed opinions on Coach Prime, but say what you want. There's storylines following him every week, and
Oh yeah.
at least through 3 weeks, it's been incredibly entertaining. Maybe this will get old after a while, but I'm glued to it for now.
That's all I got, Coach.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to Gauchos After Dark. Like I said at the outset, we'll be doing this every college football Saturday to recap, kind of take a look around the Big 12, and we appreciate the support of our sponsors, Barnett, Howard, and Williams. They handle all kinds of cases based in Fort Worth, but they work all across the state of Texas. They hope you never need them, but they're in your corner if you do. BHWLawFirm.com. We will talk to y'all next week. Love y'all.